Well, it took about 5-6 days longer than we anticipated, but the legacy gun groups, gun rights groups in Washington and their gunfluencer networks have finally come out and started their attacks on the American Firearms Association in response to the, for lack of a better word, the exposure that we brought to the entire debate over whether or not the NFA should be deregulated or if the tax should simply be zeroed out. So with that, guys, I want to welcome in my brother Ben Dorr is here down in that corner, and my other brother Aaron Dorr is here in this video today. We're in this video, we are going to break down the basics of what happened with that whole fight over the BBB. We're going to break that down for you guys so you guys have all that information. And then we're going to start to unwind a little bit of the information that's being peddled out there right now by the gunfluencer networks and anybody affiliated really with Gun Owners of America at this point. So with that, Ben, and one other thing, this is going to be part one of likely two. Be looking for that second video. We'll probably drop that tomorrow or the day after, where we are going to address specifically the video that was put out by Jared over at Guns and Gadgets, where he slung a whole bunch of mud, but he never bothered to reach out and ask us some basic questions, which we would have been very happy to provide him some answers for. So Ben, you saw the video. Tee this off here and just jump right into it.
Well, look, first I just want to say, like, it's frustrating to be in this situation because you know that what Jared did, and we like Jared. We've watched a lot of his content. Yep. We know he's reading our stuff, right? It's the gun world is a small world. If you've been in it for more than about 5 minutes, you know everybody, just like we know everybody. And so to see Jared sitting there reading verbatim, basically lines from The Trace, from the Daily Beast, from NBC, all of these media organizations that have been viciously attacking the Dorr Brothers, the American Firearms Association over all these years, and that becomes kind of the basis for his video. It's just sad to watch. We would much rather just did an interview, had a conversation about it, and had some questions asked, stuff like that. But all of this has come about because of everything that's happened over the last month, give or take, in the fight over the NFA and the big, beautiful bill. It was the biggest expansion. It was the greatest opportunity we had in a generation to deregulate the Second Amendment, restore rights to the people, and actually get the GOP to fulfill some freaking campaign promises for the first time ever to the gun owners who put them in office, and pass great legislation to put the power back in the hands of the people. And we got screwed. We got screwed over by the legacy gun groups up there who are desperate for a win, because at the end of the day, in politics, if you're a group, you're always sitting there going, oh, how do I prove my bona fides to the people? If I can get a win, people will send us money. And then you're faced always with the compromise. Do I hold out for what the people really want? Or do I take the BS compromise that's being offered to me by the politicians and get a win, and then go back to my people and go, hey, look, see, we got a win. You should keep supporting us. That's what happened with the NFA fight. It was a bunch of big groups that haven't had any wins to speak of in years and years and years. They wanted to win. It didn't matter if gun owners got screwed over. And frankly, the American Firearms Association was the one organization who was calling everybody out on it. Stop selling us out. Stop selling out gun owners. Hold that line and get SBRs, SBSs, and suppressors deregulated. And in my view, that was the impetus for this whole video that Jared shot today on behalf of Gun Owners of America. Just crapping all over the great members and supporters of the American Firearms Association. That's my take on it. Aaron,
should we do a quick timeline review of what the BBB fight was all about and what our major beef was? I mean, Aaron, do you want to do that? You want me to do it?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the big issue here is we all busted our tails, right, all last fall to get in a position to get a win. Gun owners took back the Senate. We kept the House, put Trump back in the White House again. This was finally our time. But let's not forget, Joe Biden didn't just rant. He passed gun control through Congress. He did
Safer Communities Act.
Tremendous damage with executive orders and bureaucratic processes. It was all to be undone. This was our chance to do it. And so the BBB contained in it all this information to remove suppressors, short-barreled rifles, that's SBRs, and short-barreled shotguns, and other firearms from the NFA, because everyone knows the NFA has to go. It's been commie garbage since it was passed in 1934. This was the goal, deregulate all of these items. And every time this happens, whether it's in Congress or whether it's in a state capitol where we do some of our best work, I guess, to be honest, it's so much fun there. Definitely. When you're at the cusp of a big victory, there's always these deals offered up. Hey, you guys take this, we'll give you that. If you accept this, we'll let this go. And that was exactly what happened here. The legacy gun organizations in D.C. were basically offered, or were certainly presented with, well, we're not going to give you this, but we will give you this, but you got to sing our praises. And that's exactly what happened. So instead of these things being deregulated, where you can go and buy an SBR like a regular firearm, now it's all we've got now is the tax stamp fee went from $200 to $0. That's it. And the politicians knew they won when that infamous letter was signed by all these organizations, the ones who are attacking us now.
Wrong one.
Not that image, the other one. Yeah. And you
sorry.
can see that the third paragraph down. This is not the full repeal it should have been, but there's still a chance to get a win to zero out the tax stamp on suppressors and short-barreled firearms. Once.
It's very important here to notice the date of this. This is on June 27th, just a couple of weeks ago. This is before the bill had moved out of the Senate. This is when the Senate had just received the House version of the BBB. The House version only had suppressors deregulated under the NFA. The Senate version had the Short Act in it, with full deregulation of both SBRs and SBSs and suppressors. And on June 27th, before the fight in the Senate even got kicked off,
right?
That's when this letter came out. That's when GOA, FCC, NRA, of course the NRA, we don't hear what we're not saying here. We're not sitting here holding the NRA to some big, huge standard. This is very standard protocol for them. They've endorsed all of these rhinos for decades and decades and decades. This is what they do. They snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, and they preempt a victory by publishing this kind of trash. The difference this time, though, is that they got Gun Owners of America from the outset, before the outset of this fight on the Senate side, to sign this letter to Thune and the entire swamp caucus in D.C. in the Republican Senate conference, and said, we don't like this, but we insist on you zeroing out the tax. And one thing I wanted to mention, Aaron, before we get too far, when we talk about wins here, we're not talking about the status quo that we've had for the last, in our lifetimes. The status quo in D.C. is, when it comes to wins, they've only been regulated or relegated to the courts.
Yep.
Okay? The left comes in, they pass stuff. The absolute garbage gets passed through Congress. Nix expansions, all this crap. And then we go into the courts. The left passes what they want through Congress, and then our side has to go into the courts to try to get this stuff fixed. That has been what the definition of wins has been. For in 2024, after the elections were over, this was the first time in our lifetimes that we had the opportunity for congressional wins. I'm talking about, we control both chambers of Congress and the White House. This is our opportunity to not just deregulate this by going to the courts. We could pass bills through the House, through the Senate, both of which were elected by pro-gun America, put on President Trump's desk, and he was absolutely going to sign that sucker no matter what, because it was his hallmark piece of policy legislation with everything crammed into it. This was going to pass. This was our chance for a congressional win. And we've never seen that before in our lifetime. So I just want to throw that in there. The date is very important, because June 27th, before this whole thing started, before GOA's emails started to hit your inbox, before everybody else's emails and all the gun tubers started clamoring on X, GOA had waved their white flag already. Long before this really kicked into high gear on June 29th, 2 days previously, they had said, we're fine with just zeroing out the tax. And guess what? John Thune got the message loud and clear. Instead of all of pro-gun America and all the gun groups all lining up on the same page and saying, absolutely hell not, we are not going forward with this until we get full deregulation. John Thune, he was handed his cheat card from the very outset and said, hey,
we could have won.
What you want.
We could have won.
It'd be the same thing. Well, all these states where we passed constitutional carry for the last 2 decades, if we had said we want to get no permits, but we'll take a zero cost permit to carry concealed, we'll accept that. If we had done that, we'd have passed that in the first week in some states, in the first year in every single state. When you sell out like a cheap, when you sell out cheap, you get cheap results. Yeah, you get cheap results. And to your point, Chris, if we don't get legislative wins, I'm sorry, it just doesn't matter a whole lot. And the example I'm going to use is not even about guns. It's Obamacare. These people are worldview ideologues. They will go to the mat to get their agenda passed. In this case, it was Obamacare. And what's happened? It's still on the books. Now there's no tax applied to our personal income taxes if we don't follow it. It's still there. That's the point. They pass big policy. We fight in court. We scale back 20%. We scale back 10%. Or we scale back the enforcement. And the next time they have a chance to do it, the enforcement comes right back down our throat. That's going to happen again on guns, just the same way it happened on Obamacare.
Yep.
And that's why, and that brings us up. I don't know if there's much more we want to mention here, but anybody who's been following this fight, you know all this already, right? If you've been watching our videos, if you were tracking all of this through the House, through the Senate, back. What's that, Chris?
I said they're going to be linked in the description, all those videos.
Yeah. So if you're following this, you know this already. You guys are the ones who went after GOA and said, what the hell are you guys doing? Stop selling this out. Stop capitulating, especially so early, for heaven's sake. Stop this crap. Stop it. And so that's what brought us to now, right? Because when it comes to the Dorr Brothers, when it comes to the organizations that we work with across the country to push great policy and to stop the total destruction of our freedoms, we say it ourselves. But when it comes to Gun Owners of America, what's happened here is you're not going to get Eric Pratt to sit down in front of a camera and say, well, I disagree with the American Firearms Association. Be sure to have all your books behind you. I disagree with the American Firearms Association.
Try to make it look like he's got some guns, but.
And what they're saying is wrong. He's not going to say that. He won't debate the issue. Exactly. He won't debate what actually happened, because what happened is so unbelievably shitty. That's why. And so instead, Gun Owners of America resorts to paying gun tubers, paying influencers online to shoot their little attack videos themselves, which is why I'm genuinely disappointed that Guns and Gadgets got roped into this stupid video, honestly.
Yeah.
That he puts out better content than that, but GOA will not have these discussions face to face. They will not discuss this with their own people. Instead, they pay people to come out and do hit pieces, quoting articles and attacks from Bloomberg years ago, paid for by Bloomberg, literally funded by them. He owns the Trace, or rather he funds the Trace, the Daily Beast, these big articles that were the big takedowns of the Dorr Brothers from 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago. And instead, those are what they spout, instead of going, actually, the reason this entire video is being shot right now about the Dorr Brothers is because, well, they're the ones who brought all the attention to what GOA was doing with the NFA, with the BBB. That's how this whole thing came about. That's why the video was shot, because GOA will not own up to the fact that they and FPC and NRA and the rest of the groups that were on the top of that piece of paper that we just had on the screen, they signed the letter in advance of the fight telling all of DC that we were going to settle for the bullshit they made us settle for.
You know, we've been in these situations many times where, you know, we're there at the drafting phase, right? We work with legislators to get bills drafted and stuff. I know one thing, if you sit out and you tell your opponents from the very outset, the very bare minimum that you are going to settle for, that you will never, ever get what you actually want passed. That's exactly what happened here when they ran up the white flag. But I wanted to talk, and again, this is part 1 of 2. We're going to do another video in the very near future where we go through Jared's video exhaustively. It'll probably be a 45-minute video. We don't want this one to be that long. But just to echo what you said, Ben, it was very disappointing to see what Jared, how Jared handled this instead of reaching out, because it wasn't even maybe just a couple of months ago. I think it was in February when he and I were emailing back and forth, and I actually have this email here. I want to pop it up for everybody. What I'm really sad to see, and here I'm going to switch this around. What I'm really sad to see is that he just didn't reach out and say, hey, I got some questions for you. This is serious stuff. I want serious answers. And he could have done that because we had already opened up a line of communication with him. And I'm going to show you guys the email where I offered something that I've never offered to anybody else here before. But just check out this email real quick. I'll read it out loud for those of you who are listening to this and not watching it. But this is back in February 20 of this year. I said, hey, Jared, I'm Chris Dorr here from the American Firearms Association. Saw your video, missed your reach out. He said that he had reached out to me on Instagram. I don't check that shit. And I said, I would happily come on your show to talk about it, which was another topic. And I said, since it's obvious that you stay up to speed on the gun politics world, and it's a fast moving one, so that was a credit to him. If you ever wanted to do a fun breakout episode where you grill me about the Dorr Brothers, I'd be happy to come on your show anytime you want with no restrictions. Nobody's ever asked to do it. We've never offered, but I'd be happy to. People love to sling mud about the work me and my brothers do and about the tactics that we employ, but I have zero problems answering any of the questions that you might come up with. And if you're at CPAC, I'd be happy to buy you a cup of coffee if that works for you. In other words, we're an open book. And we expect that, especially when it comes to like reporting, investigative reporting. We expect some common courtesy there. But I reached out to him in full good faith.
Well, the reason he did that is because we thought he was acting on good faith, right?
Yeah.
You thought you'd get a fair shake. He seems legitimate. He seems like you said, like a true believer, right? Who loves the Second Amendment, loves our country. You know, you can have a conversation with somebody who is real and authentic and not, blowing smoke up your backside or just trying to do cheap shots. And we love having conversations with people like that. And that in February is exactly what Jared looked like, to you, to us, was somebody who'd give the issues and the whole fight that we were all engaged in and us a fair shake. Ask the tough questions. We're happy to answer them, but be fair in your reporting and in the videos that we put out. Anyway, I want to throw that in there. Did he respond?
Yes, he did. Actually, he said that he was on the road and that he would call me the very next day. And I checked my call logs. I never got a call back from him, but and certainly, as you can see there, I don't know if you can see it. I think I blacked out my cell phone numbers. But I put my cell phone right there at the bottom. I said, this is my cell to call me, so we could stop doing the email rope-a-dope stuff. But that's again, this is part 1 of two videos in this series where we're going to address this fully. We just want everybody to know what happened here. Number 1, number 2, why we employ the tactics that we employ, because we think it'll make good sense. Ben, there was one other thing that somebody had said. I think he said in that video today that you were so angry. Did you have a knee jerk on that?
I mean, there were definitely a few things, but I guess I want to round out, what I'm thinking about this, and basically say that we've been doing this. I've been in politics for 10 years. We get shit on. We get smeared. The groups, even the gun owners who work with us and fight with us closely, who hop on to the comment section and go after some of these politicians, they get smeared, they get called all sorts of names, they get doxxed, but we fight because we want to do the best we can for our country, for our children, which I don't even know how many we have now between the three of us. But I was thinking about this earlier. It's just probably inconsequential, but oh yeah, we can do that too. It's like when I got my oldest boy, he's 9. When he's 4 years old, he's watching me on Facebook Live, going, "Daddy's doing gun rights," and that's what this is all about. It's about our country. It's about our kids. It's about advancing this issue. And if you're not willing to get down in the mud and swing at the frickin' pigs, then you're not doing the job right. If you're always going to be prim and proper and daddy's good boy and the teacher's pet and here's your apple, if you're always going to be just an online tiger or a gun tuber or something else, don't be surprised when you don't get the wins, when you don't get the victories, because victories are freaking hard to get, and they require you to get your face punched in over and over and over. And clearly Jared read all the articles. You read a whole history of the hit pieces and the attacks that have been had and done on us for all these years, and the organizations that we work with and the gun owners who support us and ride with us. And if we're not willing to go that far and fight that hard, we're not going to win. So that's what sets the American Firearms Association apart from the rest of the groups, is because they're either paper tigers or they're prim and proper little boys, or they're legacy groups who are not willing to take the black eyes where they come. And I think that Jared knows that, or he knew that, or he should have known that, but we don't apologize for that. We don't apologize for scrapping the way we do or for employing the tactics that we do, because what it does is it strikes fear into the heart of politicians all across the country, and it forces them to vote for great bills and to vote against bad bills, and they don't like it, and they don't like us, and they don't like our groups, but it's how we've had so many wins in so many states over the last several years. And the groups that employ GOA-style tactics never get any wins, which is why they capitulated on the BBB.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just so dang sad, to be very honest, because I looked up to Larry Pratt as a god when I was like a high schooler or a college student. This guy was a legend in the fight for gun rights, and they were scrappy. They were mean, they were small compared to, like, say, NRA. These guys were like these really aggressive ass beaters who got stuff done. At least that's how it looked to me when I was in high school or in college. All that is gone. GOA has now become I think it was in the last 2 years, or maybe it was the last 3 years, $25 million of money raised, $25 million raised from gun owners all across the country. And what happens when you hit that threshold is now you have the budget to employ influencers to keep your hands clean. Now you're invited to fancy parties you weren't invited to a couple of years ago. Now you're a part of the insider club, certainly in certain breakfast meetings in Washington, D.C., because you now are at that insider level. And that is not what they used to be. And so now they have a choice to make. Do we continue down this path and effectively sell out our entire base and protect the John Thunes of the world and say, we'll take this crap version of what we should have had in the BBB? Or do they risk it all, risk the ire of leadership in the House and Senate, risk being uninvited to some of those fancy breakfasts and dinners? That's a choice that very few organizations will ever make. They'll almost never make the choice to risk it all for their members. And that's sadly here what happened. So now, like you said, Kristen, you're open. It took about 5 days longer than we expected, but I have no doubt that tomorrow another influencer is going to do a thing, and then another and another and another. And the truth is, There's a lot of fodder out there for all you gun tubers who are trying to go down this paid for path. Lots of Bloomberg articles, trace.com. They've done most of the research for you because they're all commie, freedom hating lefties. But it's unfortunately, it shouldn't have had to happen. But that's where we are right now, guys.
And the last thing I'll do is I'll leave you all with this. Again, this is part 1 of 2. We're going to come out with the next one here pretty shortly, where we go through, incidentally, we go through all of the accusations that Jared levels in that video. We're going to do them line by line. We're going to show you the clip of him, and then we're going to respond and give the explanation for everything in that video. So a lot of the fake news, or not fake news, but a lot of the gun grabber, Bloomberg funded hit pieces on us are going to be addressed in this video line by line. We'll even probably talk about Liberty Bimbo's video where she attacked us as well. And maybe we'll do a separate video on that at some point down the road, but be watching for the second part of this series. We're going to be dropping it here in probably the next 48 hours tops. So with that, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for keeping an open mind. And for those of you who are supporters of us, thank you for your friendship, your loyalty. It's our privilege and honor to be your voice in the state capitals and in the halls of DC without compromise. Thanks a lot.